get underway. Hello and welcome, everybody. It is a pleasure to welcome you to a challenging and very difficult series. This series is called Controlling Anger. And I don't think that there is a greater challenge, actually, than being able to control our anger, to keep it in check. And I want to start with a confession. I know confession isn't classically what we do as Jews, although on Yom Kippur, there is a section of the service called the confession. I want to start with a confession. Where was I? I was in the supermarket. This is precisely the example that I used with you last week. I don't know if you remember, but I used with you the example that when I'm in the supermarket and I'm in a hurry, that's usually when the line stops. The people in front of me have the greatest moments of struggle. And I said to you, you know, when that next happens and you feel that anger start bubbling up inside you, all you need to do is remember my classes, remember these teachings, take a deep breath, count to 10. And I have to tell you that I failed my own teachings. I share this with you. I share this with you with a heavy heart, but I'm being honest. We're all working on this together. And I'm in the line, and I don't even remember what happened right now, but I just remember that it was this moment of great frustration of come on already, let's get going. And I tell you something, I did think of you. The fact that I'm even sharing this story with you, I did think of you. And I did have a moment where I told myself, you know, compose yourself, bring yourself together, shake yourself out of this. How can you possibly be teaching a class on controlling anger? And how can you possibly be giving an example of the very trigger that you have of lining up in a supermarket when something then suddenly stops and you're going to lose your patience now? Of all places, of all examples. And I was able to control myself. And I want you to know that it gets to the very heart of these classes, it gets to the very heart of these courses. Because I'm noticing the light from the background is not as good as it. That's probably a lot better, right? Probably a lot better, yes. So I'm realizing that when we speak about these issues, when we talk about these concepts, when we are learning, when we're actively engaged in the very matter itself, it can help us in the moment. If something was to happen right now, in the middle of this class, I'm sure we would all be angels, we would all be Sadiqim, and we would be able to have that presence of mind to say, I'm not going to let this get me angry. This isn't going to trigger me. I'm going to be calm and it's easy in the moment. But I'm not talking about right now. We're talking about sometime later this week, wherever you may be, with whoever you may be, God will create a set of circumstances to put you perfectly in a place where you'll be confronted with an opportunity. Am I going to get angry, or am I going to hold my patience? And that's exactly what we are learning. That's exactly what we are trying. And without any further ado, let's jump right in and learn. Before we jump right in, comments, questions. That was my introduction, or better title, that was my confession. Comments, questions. Anything at this point? And Vivian, you want to? Yes.
If I understood, you just say God creates the circumstances?
Very good. You're listening so carefully. I love that about you, Vivian. You pay attention as the best student. Vivian, and this could be covered in its own course, God's relationship with us. But I believe, and I believe this is a very Jewish idea, that if we can frame those moments of anger in a perspective where we can see those tests and challenges as precisely that, moments for us to overcome because they were God-given challenges in our lives. I believe that's part of the solution to overcoming our challenges. In the words of one rabbi, anger is a gift of a test. I'll say that again. Anger is the gift of a test. And seen in this context, suddenly our whole lives can take on a different framing. Everything in your life, circumstances, and I mean everything, where you were born, where you were raised, who your parents were, socioeconomic level, different challenges along the way, health issues, family issues, relationship issues. Our lives have been tailor-made for us exquisitely and perfectly so that the contours of our soul can have the best brought out in them. And what is the mechanism for polishing the diamond that is our soul? Challenges. Now, we don't like to think in these terms. We don't want to invite difficulties into our life, and that's correct and appropriate. We don't want difficulties. We don't want challenges. And yet, if we are honest for a moment, if we look back on our lives and see the moments where we have grown, those moments were moments when we were under pressure. There is a beautiful analogy here. It's not my own. It was the late, great Rabbi Abraham Twersky. Abraham Twersky was a Hasidic rabbi who realized early on, he passed away last year in his 90s, an exceptional human being. He realized early on in his career that he wasn't going to find many Hasidim. He said the world has changed, and if he wanted to be a Hasidic rabbi, he came from a dynasty of great Hasidic rebbes. He said when he looked out at the world, he realized that the world was changing and he wasn't going to be a rabbi with many followers. So what did he do instead? He said he still wanted to practice the craftsmanship of being a Hasidic Rebbe, but he needed a new outlet to enable him to have followers, to have Hasidim. So he joined a secular schooling, very unusual for somebody in his Hasidic family, and he trained and became qualified as a medical doctor, and then did his postgraduate work in psychiatry. And where did he practice? In a Catholic university. Fascinating. Just that is a fascinating biography and a statement of Judaism in the 20th century, 21st century. Rabbi Abraham Twersky gives the following analogy. He says that if you look out at the world of marine biology, how he knew this, I have no idea. He said that I'm blanking on the word. It's not shrimp, lobster. Excuse me. I'm blanking on my non-kosher varieties of fish. He said that lobsters, early on in their growth, will actually switch shells. This is an incredible thing. When does that process of coming out of its initial shell happen? When the lobster grows too large for its original shell, and the original shell can no longer grow with it. And the lobster finds itself in a moment of extreme pressure and discomfort, and it's stuck. And the world in which it's living is simply too small for it. And at that point of extreme pain and discomfort, the lobster will actually shed its shell, and then grow into a second one. In other words, growth comes about when we experience pain. When the very thing which houses our lives, our very bodies sometimes, is too small for us. And we reach the boundaries of where we can't go any further. Now, this is an exceptionally hard and difficult thing I'm saying right now. And this is all by way of a segue into our class. This is just an introductory comment. But growth happens, spiritual growth happens when we realize we need to grow larger and bigger. And we're encountering pain in our lives. Wow. Okay. Think about that for the next 20 years. I've been thinking about that for at least 25 years now. These are challenging ideas, but I haven't come to play softly with you today. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're here to make something of ourselves. We're here to be better human beings. We're here to work on literally, what's the title of this course? The content of our character. And hopefully, if we can do the hard work, the content of our character, we can grow into the most beautiful angels in human form. Butterflies too, exactly. Very good, very good. Let's jump in. Let's jump in. See how dangerous a question can be, Vivian? We can go into a tangent at the beginning. And by the way, I wanted to run through this class because I'm not sure about next week. Believe it or not, next week I'm flying back to Israel. And I think it's going to be at the same time as when our class is supposed to be scheduled. So watch this space. I'm going to see if I can change around my plane ticket, or I'm going to see if, because I'm out of Toronto, whatever. I don't have to go into the details with you. But we'll have to see what happens for next week. In the meantime, let us see what we can do this week. And I would like to ask you to take a look at the following. Do you see my screen? Yeah? Okay. Everyone can see my screen? Good. Let us begin. We start with the Ramban, Nachmanides. Nachmanides, the Ramban, living in 14th century Spain, writes a letter to his son. It's become very famous. You can find this in English. You might even be able to get a free download on the internet. It's called the Letter of the Ramban, with a nun at the end, with a nun, Ramban, an N. Look what he says. This is a very short letter, and we have here just a sentence of it. Titnaheg tamid ledaber kol davarecha benachat lechol adam ubechol et. Accustom yourself to speak gently to all people at all times. My goodness, if you just wanted to stop there, we can finish the class. There you go. We're finished. We're done. We're good. Stick that on your fridge. I need to find a way to text you the source material. I want you to have a copy of this because it's worthy of printing out, putting it on your fridge. And what will happen, says the Ramban, if you accustom yourself to speak gently to all people at all times, ubazeh, and what will take place? Titnatzel min haka'as, shehi midah ra'ah, lahachtia b'nei adam. This will protect you from anger, the most serious of character flaws which causes sin. It's a stunning statement. What is, I'm sorry, let me just, another word of introduction, I apologize. Today, I want to look at methods that will allow us to literally practice controlling anger, okay? We looked at in class 1, the dangers of anger. We looked in class 2, how meritorious and praiseworthy controlling anger is. Today is an incredibly important class because I'm going to give you techniques. This is not theoretical. This is not floating around in the air. I want to bring it down to reality. We're going to look at techniques. And the Ramban says, do you know what the greatest technique is? Speak softly, speak gently. When? Always. To who? To everybody. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what your life would look like? Okay, Rambam, Maimonides, 12th century. Very, very important. Let me make this a little bigger. I'll read the English. Hilchot Deot, chapter 2, halacha 3. There are certain character traits that one must distance oneself from in the extreme. Now stop there for a moment. I want you to know that the Rambam was a great believer in what we call the golden mean, the middle path, having a sense of equilibrium, having a sense of balance. And throughout his works, including his medical works, he always presents what was really Aristotle's idea before him. We know the Rambam was deeply, deeply a follower of Aristotle, and he presents an idea of the golden path, the golden mean, a sense of middle, a sense of balance. What is a sense of imbalance for Maimonides? Going to an extreme. With everything, by the way, with everything, going to an extreme was a terrible trait. There's one exception to the rule, and it's fascinating. What is Maimonides? One exception to the rule. Look at how he starts this idea. There are certain character traits that one must distance oneself from in the extreme. And here comes the most powerful punch. After I just said that introduction with Maimonides' philosophy, look at what he says. In fact, it is forbidden to take the standard approach of the middle path regarding these character traits. Isn't that amazing? If we're going to be sophisticated, if we're going to be serious in how we approach these character traits, then realize that there is exceptions to the rule. There's no such thing as a standard rule book where everything is even killed. No. With a sense of sophistication, even Maimonides says that it would actually be forbidden to take the middle path with regards to certain character traits. And what is one of these character traits where one has to distance oneself from them in the extreme? Let's continue reading. Anger is an extremely negative character trait, and it is fitting for a person to distance oneself from it to the opposite extreme. One should train oneself never to become angry, even regarding things for which anger might be justified. Is this not one of the most challenging things you've ever heard? Even regarding things for which anger might be justified, you've got to train yourself. You've got to work on yourself. You've got to do the hard, difficult moral work of distancing yourself from anger completely. Now, at this point, half of you are thinking, yeah, well, there's certain examples in my own life where I'm justified to be angry, and you don't understand my circumstances. And if you only would live in my shoes, you would know that I'm allowed to get. No, stop thinking that. I know what you're thinking. This is one of the skills that they gave me. I'm able to be a mind reader. Okay. And you're thinking, well, that's nice for somebody else. But if you only knew my life and my situation and my circumstances, then it would. No, that's wrong. Anger is an extremely negative trait, says Maimonides. And you should distance yourself to the opposite extreme. Fascinating. Let's go on. Shlomo Volbe. Shlomo Volbe is a fascinating human being, born in Germany, pre-war, attended University of Berlin. He will move to the land of Israel in the 20th century, and he will go on to become one of the great leaders of the Haredi community. Fascinating, because we know that in Israel today, the ultra-Orthodox community is extremely polarized, and one of the flashpoints is actually secular education. So how is it that a secularly educated young Jewish man from Germany who attends the Berlin Yeshiva can become one of the spokespeople and leaders of Haredi ultra-Orthodox Judaism? His life story is fascinating. He passed away, not sure, I want to say 15 years ago, approximately. I'm not sure. You can find out on Google. But we're talking about a contemporary, a 20th century contemporary. What is he known for? In all of his talks and in all of his speeches, they were called schmoozin. If anyone speaks Yiddish, you know, to schmooze is to have a casual chat. So he didn't give big presentations. He didn't give lectures. He gave schmoozin because he felt like, let's just talk among ourselves. And he started these, what could best be described as psychological workshops with practical exercises. In a sense, he was a forerunner to cognitive behavioral therapy. The guy was a genius. And what he would do was these behavioral modification workshops. You can already see how interesting this man was. And he spent his whole life on taking different character traits and simply working on them. Getting angry, shouting, being jealous, eating too much, feelings of love, wanting to grow and build, emotional states. He would literally train hundreds of thousands of students to be better human beings. Fascinating. He wrote a 2-volume book called Alei Shore, and people would flock in the hundreds and hundreds to hear his live public lectures. But even more importantly, some of his greatest students said that he would only take on groups of 10 people at a time. And they would sit in his room in a circle of just 10 chairs. And he would talk to his students and he'd say, okay, so bring out your journal. I want you to share with me your journaling from this week in terms of the character trait that you were working on. And people would take journals and they would note down in their journal how they failed or how they succeeded. And that would be his workshop. He would get the students to read out their journaling from that week. Isn't that interesting? Just as a model of teaching. So we have 2 books from him. This 2-volume Alei Shore. Let's take a look at what he says. This is taken from volume 2. He says, we will train ourselves to be patient. We will fix a specific amount of time every day, for example, approximately 15 minutes, in which we will strive to bear with patience all that we see and hear, even when things may be upsetting to us, and even if they are hurtful to us, without losing our composure at all. In cases where it is necessary or obligatory to react, we will do so with measured, calm words, without becoming overly emotional. Oh my goodness, let's just stop there for a minute. I want to take these words to heart. I want to take his words seriously. And so here's what I want to do. I want to get real with you. I haven't done this with you yet. I hope you realize that this is the real deal now. And it's taken me a couple of months to earn your trust. But I'm now going to give you homework. Okay? I'm going to give you homework. And I know we're in the middle of the class. We're only at the beginning, but I want to do this with you seriously. I would like you all to accept upon yourselves for the next week to choose a specific 15 minutes. And I want you to take those 15 minutes where you're not going to react with a sense of anger, and you're not going to react with a sense of an emotional outburst. Now, here's the challenge. These 15 minutes cannot be when you're asleep. How did it go? It was great. I didn't respond. Okay, what time did you choose? 3 a.m. to 3:15 a.m. It was perfect. No. We're not talking about that. And I don't want you to take 15 minutes when you're on your own and no one's there. I want you to choose 15 minutes. And what are your triggers? If it's lining up in the bank, then choose those 15 minutes. If it's when you come home at the end of your work day, and for some reason you just feel that walking into the house, your buttons are being pushed. If it's at dinner time where you're listening to if it's when you're talking with your children on the phone, oh my God, help me. They just make me crazy. Whatever it might be, whoever it might be, I'm speaking telepathically right now, okay? Fill in the blanks. You know when, you know who, and you know what those circumstances are. I want to challenge us. I'm going to do it as well. For me, it's going to be waiting in line. It's terrible. I have no patience. I can't, I just, my heart starts racing. I've got to be honest with you. If we're being real, I'm going to speak to you one-on-one in a very, I physically change. I'm waiting in line, could be anywhere, supermarket, airport, bank, it doesn't matter. I wait in line. As soon as that happens, I'm getting frustrated. I have no patience. I mean, I'm working on it, obviously. I'm trying. But this week, I'm going to actually put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to put into effect, I'm going to do the homework as well. Okay? And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and chronicle it. Okay? Don't know if you've ever seen one of these devices. It's called a phone. Don't know if you've ever heard. It's a phone. By the way, the phone is the last app of all of the apps I use on this. I don't know why we call it a phone anymore. We should just call it a camera. I use that a lot. We should call it a voice recording device. I use that a lot. A calculator. I use that a lot. A Facebook checking, Instagram, social media device. I use that a lot. Phone calls? Who makes phone calls anymore? But anyway, I have a phone, and on this thing called a phone, what's very useful is an app called Notes. I don't know if you use Notes. I'm going to use my notes to chronicle how I am attempting to overcome my own internal feelings when I'm waiting in line, because that's my trigger. That's when it's me. For you, plug in the answer. You know what the answer is. Could be the bank, could be speaking with your kids, could be walking home, could be at dinner time, could be walking and having a conversation with a partner, whatever it is, whatever it is. And try and chronicle it. And we're actually going to do this seriously. Costco on Sunday. Yeah, exactly. Talk about putting yourself in the lion's den. So, but I want to read again his words. Okay? Because I find them powerful. We will train ourselves to be patient. It's a skill. It needs training. It needs work. Why would you think that you're born an angel? Why would you think that you're born giving tzedakah? It takes training. Why would you think you're born not gossiping about other people? It takes training. Why would you think that you're born to be slow to anger? We're not. We do like to gossip. We do get quick to anger. We are sometimes not generous with our resources. We're born that way. It takes a lifetime's worth of training to grow into, again, what's the goal? Becoming an angel in human form. And I promise you, friends, it's possible. How do I know? Because I've met them. I have met exquisite, exceptional human beings that walk this earth, and I look at them and I say to myself, that's not a human being. That's an angel in human form. because of how they conduct themselves, how they carry themselves, how they are weighted with their few and well-chosen words when they speak. And you met them as well. You have met these people because we have been blessed on our journey of lives to encounter angels who live on earth. But it takes training even for them. So let's read again the words of Rabbi Volby. We will train ourselves to be patient. We will fix a specific amount of time every day. For example, approximately 15 minutes, in which we will strive to bear with patience. Now, look at that word. That's a really important word. He's not saying it's easy. When you bear something, that means you carry the weight of it, right? When you bear something, that's when you grit your teeth and you're like, oh God, this is hard. That's what bearing something means. We're not talking about a walk in the park. We're not talking about going to the candy store where it's easy. We're talking about bearing with patience all that we see and hear, even when things may be upsetting to us. My God, that's hard. Even when things may be upsetting to us, gets worse. He knows his stuff. Look at it. And even if they are hurtful to us. And we will bear that without losing our composure at all. Are you up for the challenge? Yes? I want nodding head. I want nodding heads back. Are you up for the challenge? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take 15 minutes every day. Okay, let's go on. Now you can see why this is such a popular guy, right? You can see, because this is Torah learning where it gets real. By the way, the Alei Shor has not yet been translated into English. This is Rabbi Shlomo Volby, Alei Shor. I've seen students like with snippets of it, with an essay here, there. Oh, he's got a beautiful essay, just on a tangent. Can I go on a tangent for a sec? He has a beautiful essay called, what's the name? It's a mini essay. It's only a few pages. The title is called Frumkeit. He calls this essay Frumkeit, and it's a blistering attack on people that think they're religious. Now remember, he was the leader of ultra-Orthodox Judaism in Israel. And he has an essay and he mocks people. He's like, you know, when you're shockling, when you're moving back and forth in davening and you think you're so frum, when you put your black hat on and you think you're a tzaddik, he's like, can we get real? Can we get real? It's amazing. No one spoke like that. And he was like, let's get real. You know who else reminds me of him? Erica Brown, actually. There's not many people that speak to the audience and kind of like give it to them a little bit. And they don't give criticism in a way of making you feel bad. Erica's genius is that she can give you criticism with humor. The best teachers can make you laugh when they're telling you off. But I've heard her and not many others where they jump out of the model and the image of what it's supposed to be, and that self-congratulatory rubbing your knuckles over your chest. Aren't we great? That self-validation, that, you know, self-congratulatory sense. And I'm like, let's get real for a minute. I've noticed it in Erica Brown. Rabbi Shlomo Volby, this is who he was. And these are all of his teachings. Amazing. Amazing. I know I spent a lot of time on that. I hope that you will feel that that was a worthwhile, lengthy excursus. Let's go a little bit further. Let's go a little bit further in terms of how you develop those muscles. Rabbi Reuven Leuchter is a contemporary, originally from Switzerland, now living in Jerusalem. He's actually one of the great students of Rav Shlomo Volby. By the way, and I don't know if this is on purpose, isn't it interesting that Shlomo Volbe was himself European, coming from Berlin, and one of his great students is himself Swiss. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Is there something too harsh about Israelis? Is the climate, is the culture something that makes Israelis tough? Absolutely. But the leading voice in Israel today are these two teachers, Rabbi Volbe and his student, Rabbi Reuven Leuchter, that speak about the inner spiritual work that can be done. Here is a letter, a correspondence that he personally had. How can a person successfully work towards uprooting anger? One needs to recognize the root cause of anger and how to manage it. Okay. A person's wants and desires, in Hebrew, we call that ratzon. Simple translation of the word ratzon is will or willpower. But a deeper translation of ratzon is your core wants and desires. And by the way, they may not be bad. Ratzon is never bad, it's neutral. Let's pause here for a second. It's a really important point. It's a really important point. When we speak about ratzon, desire, it's always neutral, okay? And I mean desire for sex, desire for food, desire for money, desire for kavod. All of these things, they're very ordinary, and it's what makes us a human. It's what makes us a human being. And that's an incredibly important point. Okay? Especially today, we don't like to talk about these things. Number one, because of polite company. There are certain conversations in a cancel culture. If you speak about the wrong subjects, we're in polite company now. You don't speak about this and we're scared, we're petrified of saying the wrong thing, and someone's going to catch us out, someone's going to cancel us. And number two, the reason we don't speak about these things is because of the deep cultural influence of Christianity. And even though since the 18th century and secularism with the Reformation has essentially eliminated religiosity from our vocabulary in contemporary times, the overhang, the echo of Christian beliefs is still a part of our culture, is still a part of Hollywood, is still a part of advertising, is still a part of modern 21st century marketing. But given that cultural backdrop, it's incredibly important, and Judaism is the primary exemplar that's speaking about the themes of sexuality, of hunger for food, not just intimacy, but a hunger for food, speaking about themes of money, speaking about themes of wealth, speaking about themes of ego, honor. Judaism sees all of this as our deepest ratzon, as our deepest will, and ratzon is always neutral. Always. It's a given, it's what is. How we choose to direct that ratzon is the very essence of whether we can achieve kedusha in this world, is whether we can achieve holiness in this world. The word holiness is a terrible translation of kedusha, but I'll save that for another course on kedusha, and we'll find out what kedusha is. But we'll leave it for the moment as translating it as holiness. The greatest moments where we live our lives and achieve who we can be is when we channel ratzon into kedusha. And that's where the greatest moments of holiness are found. And that's why Judaism sees the greatest moments of spirituality is in moments of sex. Only Judaism would ever say, this is a quote in the Talmud, and I know this is a tangent, but it's incredibly important to get the framing for all of what follows. Only the Talmud could say, where would you find God You will find God when a man and woman are together in sex. Direct quote. Only Judaism speaks like this. What is the greatest moment of Kedusha? Eating food. Eating food. What's the prototype food? Bread. Bread. Bread is the prototype food. What is bread called? A battle, a struggle, a war. Only Judaism could see it like that. What is bread called? What's the Hebrew word for bread? Lechem. Lechem. What's the Hebrew word for battle, for struggle, for war? Milchama. It's the same word. Milchama, lechem. Food becomes a battle. Will we be able to elevate the physical? Can we eat the food and thereby sanctify it? Or will the food eat us? I was thinking about that yesterday as I ate an entire bag of chips to myself. Will we eat the food or will the food eat us? Okay, those are moments of where we can direct Ratzon for Kedusha. Okay, very, very important. These are deep, deep themes in Jewish philosophy. Let's get back. How can a person successfully uproot anger? So Rabbi Reuven Leuchter says one needs to recognize the root cause of anger and how to manage it. A person's wants and desires, Ratzon, your will, your deepest will, are at the core of who a person is and is their greatest drive. The reason why anger is so difficult to control is that one is angered by a situation which goes directly against one's ratzon or desires. The anger is triggered because the situation is going against the very essence of who you are. The situation corresponds opposite your very I-ness, your very me sense, your very identity, your very being. The anger is triggered because it's going against you. The opposite of anger is patience. The Hebrew word for patience is savlanut, which means to bear something. If you've ever seen an Israeli speak before, you will know they speak like this. Have you seen this motion? This motion? What does this motion mean? When an Israeli speaks, it means, and they will say, savlanut, savlanut, patience, patience. By the way, I'm sorry, I'm not sticking to the text today at all. I'm being a terrible teacher. Another tangent. Our 5-year-old, we moved to Israel this summer. You know, we've been living in Israel for 6 months now. The other day, our 5-year-old, I don't know how she has picked it up like a sponge. It's crazy. We're saying something and she turns around. She didn't even speak. She turns around. We said, "But Sheva, come here." And she's like, she motions like this to us. Just like, hang on a second. Just wait. My jaw dropped, hit the floor. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how are you an Israeli already? This is absurd. You're already an Israeli. I'm like, don't you do that to me. And then, of course, we chastise. Like, don't you, young lady, think that you could turn to your parents? And so, sablanut, Israeli, you will not meet an Israeli that speaks without a hand motion. Sablanut, patience. But what does that word sablanut mean? This is beautiful. To be sovel is to bear something, to carry something. Patience, we're over here. Patience is bearing the burden of one's own ratzon. Wow, that is an enormous statement. If you've got a pen, write it down. I want to try and send you this sheet. You need to print this. Here's the heart of this. Patience is bearing the burden of one's own desires. That's an incredibly important line. The goal of dealing with anger is being able to bear the burden of something that goes against your will. You hear this idea? Yeah, you're following this idea? This is an amazing, but why is this important? This is so important. By understanding this, we can now contextualize and frame what anger is, why it burns so hot against us, why we feel it, when it appears. This is so important. And I believe taken together, this source, Rabbi Reuven Leuchter, that we're studying now, and the previous source of Rabbi Volbe, that was encouraging 15-minute sessions of employing this practice of bearing the burden, I think taken together, we have an incredible homework exercise for this week. Really, really important. You know what? While I'm here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and put it in the chat bar, because for some reason I'm just not able to send you the whole thing. But okay, good. I've just sent it to you in the chat bar. So if you're savvy enough, you can copy and paste the chat bar, and you've got that text at least. And that's gold. Put that in your pocket, print it off, stick it on your fridge. Like for the next week, really, I'm not being facetious. Stick that on your fridge. That's gold, okay? That is very, very powerful. Okay, Rabbi Reuven Leuchter. I want to share with you a story. We'll finish with a story. This is very beautiful, and it is told of the man known as the Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim. It's said that the Chofetz Chaim was known as being a saintly character. He was known as just one of those special human beings that the world was standing upright simply because he lived in it. And it's important to realize that not everyone was born that way. No one was born that way. A story is told of the Chofetz Chaim that a disciple once hid under a bench in his shul to see how he would conduct himself and spy on him in private. It's a mashugana type thing to do. Like, why would you hide under a bench in your rabbi's shul? Okay, leave the motivation of the student, if that sounds off or weird, but it's the punchline I want to share with you. So this student's hiding underneath the bench. It's approaching midnight. Everyone's left the shul. There's just this one saintly, elderly, righteous man, the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan was his name. It's just him left. And the student reports that he sees the elderly, righteous man walk over to the ark at the front of the shul, open up the doors of the ark, and prays to God out loud, "Please, God, please help me to overcome the feelings of anger that I have." And I finish with that story because we are all victims of anger in one way or another, and on our own level. We are all victims of anger. But we should realize that the greatest of the greats were aware of it, worked on it, and did everything that they possibly could, including praying out to God to say, help me to develop and grow beyond it so that I can reach my full potential as a spiritual human being. I thank you so much for this class. This was a very special class. I feel that we've gone into a very different type of territory today. It's not just information, it's what Jewish learning should always be. It's transformation. Judaism is never information, Judaism is transformation. And so when we learn, we're not simply learning for facts. We're not learning so we can become clever. We're not learning with knowledge, data. We're learning so that we can transform who we are as spiritual human beings. And I feel that this class was a great push today in that direction. But now comes the hard work. It's one thing for me to sit here and make jokes for an hour. Now comes the hard work. Choose those 15 minutes, journal them, and let's see where we can be in 7 days from now, okay? Okay, good luck. Comments, questions? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Have a great day, have a great week, and I'll confirm with you if we have another class on Tuesday. Flying back to Israel on Tuesday, I'll confirm how that's going to work, when, if, how, okay? But in the meantime, be well, and we'll be in touch soon.